Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, after 12 years of seemingly flawless marriage, real estate investments led to suspicions of infidelity. The wife was caught having an affair with a tenant, leading to divorce. As all investments were in the husband's name, she received nothing. The husband kept the properties and sold their dream house. Now divorced, she's living with her sister while the tenants also split. Now let's get into the story. One of those investments was in real estate. I worked full-time as a financial investor, so my wife really took over the majority of that. We bought houses and refurbished them, flipping them so they would be livable, so we could rent them out to potential tenants. Everything was going very well for the first few years we started that. There was a bit of a learning curve, but my wife dove headfirst into that and made sure she was on top of everything. We were great landlords. We had a lot of our tenants stay for many years, and they never had any complaints. Through our real estate investments, we managed to find our dream home, which we completely remodeled to fit our vision. That home actually had a large guest house a few acres back on the property. We considered what we wanted to do with it, but we figured that given the size and location, we could rent that out for a substantial sum every month. We posted the listing once it was ready to live in, and after a while we found a tenant. We ended up renting to a young family with 2 twin children. They were very nice, and we were happy to have them. The husband was very involved in some technology startup, and the wife was a lawyer. They really seemed to have everything together. From what I understand, the husband usually worked from home most of the time, and his wife was often traveling for work and spending late nights in the office to work on cases. That left a lot of openings for him to slip up in their marriage. I actually started to get suspicious about him before I even thought anything could be happening with my wife. We lived in a smaller suburb. It was the perfect mix of small town life and urbanization. We had everything you could want in a larger town, but everybody knew everyone's business. One night I was picking up some takeout from an Asian fusion restaurant in town, and I saw him sitting at a table across from a woman that wasn't his wife. I thought it was odd, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions because it could have been a business partner, his sister, an old friend. I told my wife about it, and she encouraged me not to get involved because we didn't know for sure what was going on. One night my wife and I got a call from him about a plumbing issue that was happening in the house. We told him that we would be there to check it out first thing in the morning to see what needed to be done. I of course had to work, so my wife went over in the morning to check everything out and call a plumber. When I asked her about it later, she told me that it was all taken care of and I didn't need to worry about it. A few nights later, I noticed that she got a call from the neighbor kind of late in the evening. When she took the call, she turned the volume on her phone all the way down. That might seem like a relatively normal thing for most people, but my wife's phone volume was always loud enough for anybody else to hear the conversation all the way across the room. It rubbed me the wrong way, but I didn't say anything about it then. She told the tenant that she would be at his house in the morning to take a look at his stove. When she got off the phone, I asked her if she wanted me to go deal with it so she could take the day off, but she told me that it was no big deal and she had no problem going. By now you're picking up on the pattern. She would frequently get calls from the tenant who lived on our property, and she would be going to fix the sudden issues that had arisen. I was suspicious that there was something more going on that I didn't know about. I got my confirmation when I ran into the wife at the market. We stopped and said hello to each other, and even though I didn't actually think there was anything wrong with the house, I took that as an opportunity to confirm my suspicion. I apologized for all of the issues they'd been having, and she was very clearly confused. When I explained more, she was somewhat angry as I spoke. She told me that it wasn't at me, but she explained that she had suspected for a while that something was off with her husband. She even suggested to me that there might have been something going on with my wife. We came up with a plan together to try and catch them in the act. The plan was that she would pretend to be working at the office one day that she had actually taken off, and we would wait to see if her husband called my wife about an issue. They both fell right into the trap, and shortly after she supposedly left for work, her husband called my wife and said that there was a problem with one of the smoke detectors. My wife hurried over to fix the issue. The tenant's wife gave it about 10 minutes before she drove back home, leaving her car in her driveway so they wouldn't hear her coming. She had her camera out and ready to catch them. She walked right into the kitchen to find both of them having intimate. My wife ran home to me and was trying to act like nothing had happened, though I knew the truth. I was sent the video before she even walked through the door. I confronted her with the evidence, and she tried to play it off like I was the bad guy for having her recorded. I told her right then that we would be getting a divorce and that I wanted her out of the house. She told me I had no right to do that, but I informed her that I had been working with an attorney, aka my tenant, and when we would go through the divorce hearings, she would be getting nothing from me. She was confused because she might have assumed that if we ever ended things, we would split things 50-50, but that would only be if she didn't cheat on me. The real kicker was that all of the real estate investments were in my name. My wife had no credit or anything like that when we began, so all of the risk was assumed by me. I followed through with the divorce, keeping my promise that she would be getting nothing from me. All of the work that she had done for the real estate had been for nothing since I got to keep it all. I got to keep her dream house, which I promptly sold. Now she is back living with her sister while she tries to figure out getting a job and an apartment of her own. And our tenants got divorced as well. The wife was able to come out on top during the settlement. I actually see her from time to time while our kids have play dates. Today's second story. In this story, a high school sweetheart, married at 18 despite warnings, endured challenges during college, found stability after graduation. Husband gifted wife a boudoir shoot, sparking her interest in modeling. Wife began portfolio shoots with photographer. Frequent communication ensued. Husband discovered intimate photos of wife and photographer, confronting them. Uncovered emails confirming affair. Sought revenge by exposing photographer's infidelity to other models. Confrontation led to divorce proceedings, favoring husband. Now let's get into the story. We were high school sweethearts, and as soon as we were 18 and had both graduated, we got married. We were warned by practically everybody. We knew to avoid making that major commitment to each other until we had matured, but we knew that we loved each other, and there was no doubt in my mind that she was the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. There were times during college when both of us might have wished things were different. Being married meant that our social lives were a lot different from our peers. During the 4 years we were in school, we had our struggles, but we always managed to come back together and work through them. It was a stressful time, and I thought that it made us stronger than ever. Right out of school, both of us landed decent-paying jobs. However, we were still new at living completely on our own, so it took some major adjusting to gain the financial stability that we needed to start our family. After a little while, we were eventually able to rent a nice house with a yard. We adopted a dog together, and we were preparing to start trying for a baby. Around Christmas time, I was shopping around for different gifts that I could get my wife. One thing she had always told me she was interested in doing was a boudoir shoot. It wasn't something that I ever asked her to do, but it was something that she'd seen some of her other friends doing, and she thought it was a fun idea. So I found a photographer online and bought a certificate for her. She was excited by the gift when she received it on Christmas morning, and it didn't take long for her to reach out to the photographer to schedule their appointment. Even though I was the one who bought the shoot, she wanted the actual pictures to be a surprise to me, so I didn't tag along during the shoot or have anything to do with it. The day for the shoot came along, and I'm not going to lie, I was pretty nervous. There was this random person who was going to be seeing my wife in an incredibly intimate setting, and I had some reservations about it. But she assured me before leaving that it was a professional she was working with and nothing would come of it. When she got back from the shoot, she was completely beaming. She loved being in front of the camera, and she kept telling me about how the photographer told her she was a complete natural. She was a very beautiful woman, so beautiful that people would ask her all the time if she was a model, or if she planned on getting into the industry. At the time, she only thought it was meaningless compliments, but after the photo shoot, she started seriously considering it. If that's what she wanted, I was going to support her. A few weeks had passed, and the photographer reached back out to her to see if she wanted to participate in a free portfolio builder that he was offering just so he could try to get his name out there. My wife talked to me about it because she knew that I had my reservations during the boudoir shoot, but I knew nothing had happened, and so I was totally fine with it. She left and did the photo shoot. She even showed me some of the pre-edited pictures that he'd taken, and they were amazing. If he was going to try to help her get her portfolio together, I had no doubt in my mind that she would be booking gigs for runways and department stores, or whatever it is that models do. Several weeks had passed since she had done her first portfolio builder with the photographer, and she had done a few more with him since then. They were talking a lot more, and it seemed like it was mostly business-related. I was a little bit weirded out by how frequently they were talking, and how she would sometimes step out of the room to take his calls, but I didn't want to be paranoid about the relationship. When I surprised my wife at the studio, I realized that I was right to be paranoid. I walked in, and I didn't see anything outright sexual going on between them. My wife was in her underwear modeling in a bed, but I kind of thought that might have been just for a specific type of shoot. I met the photographer, and he told me how wonderful it was to work with my wife. He even commented on how lucky I was to have somebody like her, which rubbed me the wrong way. They were finishing up with their shoot, so he asked me if I could wait in the other room, and I agreed. When I was waiting, I noticed that he had a dark room in the same building. I have always been curious to be inside of one, so I let myself in. Hanging up on the strings to dry were dozens of pictures of my wife, alongside other women, and they were in compromising positions. There were nude photos of my wife, and alongside those were photos of her with the photographer in bed. I didn't know right away if they were photos that were being taken for some specific shoot, but she didn't tell me that she was in that position with him. The more I looked, the more I realized that there were pictures of them having intimate. There was nothing professional about what I saw in those pictures. I could still hear them in the studio taking pictures, so I snagged a couple of them off the drying rope and put them in my bag. I picked my head back inside, trying to hold back my rage with everything in me. I just yelled at them that I had to go into the office and enjoy the rest of their time. I was fuming. She had been coming here under the guise of trying to start a career in modeling, but she was sleeping with the photographer. When I got back home, I instantly looked through their emails and saw countless messages between them. He was telling her that she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, how he had to be with her, etc. She never once mentioned how she thought it was wrong because she was married. She loved the attention he was giving her. I printed those emails and gathered all of the evidence that I could and put it in an envelope. I sacrificed what should have been the best years of my life being married to her, and she threw it all away as if it meant nothing. I was going to show her exactly how that made me feel. I managed to do some online sleuthing and found some of the other models he was sleeping with through his Instagram. I emailed some of them and their agents, telling them that I was interested in hiring them for a fashion brand I was creating. I got a surprising amount of responses, and I invited all of them to meet me at the same time. My wife was one of those people. They all met me at a studio I rented, and a photographer that had been sleeping with my wife was also invited under the assumption he would be photographing for a catalog. When he arrived and saw all of the women, it looked like he wanted to run away. My wife finally arrived, and shortly after an altercation broke out. All of the women were yelling at the photographer for lying to them and telling them that they were the only ones he was with. My wife thought that as well. However, she was too busy fighting with me. She tried to blame me for invading her privacy and going through her emails, but I told her that I wanted a divorce and walked away. I went home and packed up all my things to go stay with my brother until I could find another place to stay permanently. But the divorce is currently underway, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty favorable toward me.